Manchester, Madrid, LA, Milan, Paris. It's fitting that David Beckham, football's most famous fashionista, should have a playing CV that reads like the tagline for a designer label. From an adopted homegrown hero in Manchester, he became an international icon of the game, one of the most famous people in the world. And while model good looks, a hefty dose of media savvy, and being married to a Spice Girl certainly contributed to his fame, his footballing success was built on an incredible drive and work ethic. Beckham grew up a Cockney Red, inheriting his father's love for Manchester United. Discovered at a Bobby Charlton soccer school, the United Legends branded schools were a mainstay of youth football culture in Britain in the 80s, he signed for his dream club as a teenager, making the move up north to live in digs and earn his stripes as a key member of the class of '92. Even before that, he'd been involved in the United culture, invited by Alex Ferguson into the dressing room for London away games from an early age, such was his promise as a kid. He made his senior debut for the Red Devils age 17, on as a substitute for Andrei Kanchelskis in a League Cup game in September 1992. 2 years later, he earned his first start, again in the League Cup, and in December 94, he scored against Galatasaray in a Champions League game. But in early 95, Ferguson decided that the youngster would benefit from additional playing time and sent him on loan to Preston North End. Suitably toughened up and forever to be cited by the Deepdale faithful as a fondly remembered hard-working visitor, Beckham returned to the fold at United. In the summer of 95, Ferguson sold Paul Ince, Mark Hughes, and most relevantly to the young right-sided midfielder, Andrei Kanchelskis. And the rest was history. By the end of the 97-98 season, he was a star for club and country. He'd won a league and FA Cup double, a further league title and a PFA Young Player of the Year award at Old Trafford, and had also won his first England cap, awarded by Glenn Hoddle in 96. He'd started every game in qualifying for the World Cup in France in the summer of 98, but was left out of the side for the first two group games. Thus began the most difficult period of his professional life. He started England's final group game, a must-win clash with Colombia, and scored a brilliant free kick in a 2-0 win. And then came infamy. Frustrated by the treatment he'd received at the hands of Diego Simeone in England's second-round clash with Argentina, he kicked out at his opponent. And it wasn't much of a kick. Beckham was lying flat on the ground and flicked his leg at a passing Simeone, but the referee did not hesitate in showing him a red card. England would go on to lose the game on penalties, and the tabloid press began a hate campaign against the young player, scapegoating him for another tournament failure. He was too flash, they decided, too confident and brash. 10 heroic lions, 1 stupid boy, read the Daily Mirror headline. The Sun published a dartboard with his face on it. On the streets of England, most notoriously, his effigy was hung and burned. So he had every right to be nervous about the forthcoming season. Travelling to away grounds with opposition fans baying for his blood, he could have retreated into his shell. Instead, backed to the hilt by Ferguson and a United support whose already ambivalent relationship with the national team made choosing sides easy, Beckham was instrumental in United's historic treble. Anyone who carries the belief that his international reputation was more to do with his fame than his football should dwell on the highlights of his late 90s and early 2000s United performances. He was highly productive, churning out goals and assists with regularity and brilliance. His spectacular set-piece ability, both in terms of goal threat and chance creation, was matched by his ability to find teammates in open play or to score from range. He was clearly the man for a big moment too, scoring in the title decider against Spurs and delivering the 2 corners in injury time at the 1999 Champions League final, which famously led to the 2 goals that won United the European Cup and ultimately a treble. He ended the season as UEFA Club Footballer of the Year and finished the year as runner-up in the Ballon d'Or voting. Over time, his relationship with England's support changed too. In temporary charge between Kevin Keegan's brief reign in the arrival of Svenga and Eriksson, Peter Taylor handed him the England armband, which he then held until 2006. Of course, the moment at which his England redemption really began came on the 6th of October 2001. Qualification for the 2002 World Cup had faltered, and England, playing at Old Trafford, had to draw with Greece to avoid a tricky playoff game. Beckham played like a man possessed that day as his team laboured around him. The home side found themselves 2-1 down in injury time. Then their captain found himself in familiar territory. Standing over a free kick at Old Trafford, just left of centre, about 30 yards out. He whipped it into the top corner and was recasted almost instantly as a national hero. His goal from the penalty spot in a 1-0 group stage win over Argentina at the finals themselves capped off his remarkable personal redemption arc. And back at Old Trafford, he won 3 more league titles in the next 4 years as the Red Devils continued their near-total domestic dominance. However, a high-profile falling out with Sir Alex Ferguson, who was increasingly suspicious of Beckham's public persona, saw United negotiate a deal with Barcelona presidential candidate Joan Laporta, who pledged to sign the midfielder should he win the election. Now, Laporta did win, but Beckham refused Barca's advances and instead he headed off for Real Madrid in 2003 to take his place in Florentino Perez's Galácticos project. Silverware proved hard to come by in Spain, however, and it wasn't until 2007, his final season at Madrid, that he finally lifted another league title trophy. That season was notable for one more classic Beckham comeback. The club's hierarchy had deemed him surplus to requirements and were not planning to renew his contract. In response, he agreed a shocking end-of-season move to LA Galaxy and MLS in January of that year. Then Madrid manager Fabio Capello wasn't happy and publicly said that Beckham would never play for the club again. Instead, Beckham's hard work and talent saw him reintegrated into the side, and he would play a crucial role in their successful run-in. So crucial, in fact, that the Madrid leadership attempted unsuccessfully to undo his transfer to the United States. His time in LA is a fascinating period. Ultimately, it has to be considered a success given the raised international profile of the league and procession of high-profile stars that have followed in his wake. But there was some ambivalence too. He extended an off-season loan to AC Milan to keep himself viable for England's selection, meaning he missed the start of the MLS season, and a banner in the crowd greeted his return with the invitation to go home, fraud. But, as is the case for most of his career, he got his head down and for the most part worked himself back into the fans' affections as he helped the Galaxy to win the MLS Cup in 2011 and 2012. His time at Milan was marked by a memorable emotional return to Old Trafford in the Champions League, the first time he'd played against United. His name had been sung on and off throughout the game as he sat on the bench. When his impending arrival on the pitch was announced, the crowd serenaded him. United were comfortably in the lead at this point, so supporters were free to revel in the return of one of their own. It was an electric atmosphere. And then he touched the ball and the whole crowd booed, an affectionate joke. The game came during the height of anti-Glazer protests. After the match was over, Beckham took the applause of the Stretford end and a fan threw a green and gold scarf, the symbol of their protest, down onto the pitch. Beckham took it and wrapped it around his neck, and the place erupted in approval. It was either an act of genuine solidarity or a beautifully crafted PR move, or maybe it was a bit of both. There was a final act in Beckham's career after his departure from the Galaxy. He signed for Paris Saint-Germain in January 2013. No label can be officially considered haute couture unless it has a workshop in Paris after all. He donated his salary during his time there to a children's charity, won the league and said an emotional goodbye at the end of the season. It was a fitting end to a brilliant career. He finished his career with 117 international caps, many as captain, having won titles in England, Spain, the US and France. He is instantly recognisable all over the world and won the respect of every set of supporters he ever regularly played in front of. And he hit a dead ball as sweetly as anyone who has ever played the game.